Roll up a fat one for the players to smoke. Short dog in the house. I know you.
Why you fighting this shit? That's some bullshit. But yeah, man, I think
He's writing so fast that the writing is like intense on the paper.
To Hort, the man who is considered the heartbeat of Oakland, you're not just a rapper, you are a legacy. He is one of the rare artists who brought West Coast hip-hop from dingy rooms straight onto the international charts. He stood in a position that no one dared to dream of, selling 500,000 records just from his home garage and becoming the independent king of an entire generation. But behind that path of achievements is a truth that many fans have never known and perhaps wouldn't dare to believe. The young man was stopped by the police in the middle of the street simply because he looked like a troublemaker. The loved ones who left him did so at the most painful times. A star was cornered when the record label went bankrupt right before the tour. All of this combined into a festering wound, causing this seemingly invincible man to succumb to his own life. Who set the trap that made him sacrifice everything? Who is the one pulling the strings behind his every misstep? Did Hollywood give him a fair chance? Or did it take away what was most precious? The truth about to be revealed will make you look at the entire hip-hop music scene with completely different eyes. 1. The baby born in Los Angeles' red zone. Before hip-hop knew a proud To Hort, before Oakland called him the voice of a whole generation of hustlers, that boy was simply Todd Anthony Shaw, born on April 28, 1966, and raised in a home where everything was neatly aligned perfectly in columns and rows. Both my parents are accountants. Books, invoices, cold numbers. If you had seen Todd back then, you would have thought he was the kind of kid who would study diligently, get a stable office job, and live peacefully just like his parents. It's too normal. But it's that very normality that's the biggest twist. Because no one expected it, from that disciplined house emerged a figure who would later break all the rules of music. Todd is the kind of child who learns everything so quickly that adults sometimes can't keep up. He taught himself to read music and play drums at just 11 years old, and he would often sit for hours listening to and studying recordings from the 1970s. Every night, Todd would crawl under the covers to hide from his parents, lie close to the speaker, and listen to each bass line as if he were deciphering a secret only he understood. But then, at the age of 14, the whole family left South Central to move to Oakland, and this was the real shock. If Todd's South Central is a place where gunfire and gangs lurk around every corner, Oakland is a completely different world. Oakland was famous at that time for its underworld figures and pimp Southas. The film, The Mac, shot entirely in Oakland and based on the story of a man who wants to become the city's biggest pimp, was released just a few years before. To Hort moved there, and although it was just a movie, it closely reflected the reality of life in Oakland during the 70s and 80s. The pimp's sout was made to look really flashy. Men wore pimp hats, walked in a pimp style, were surrounded by beautiful women, and To Hort witnessed it all from the front row. He enrolled at Fremont High School, and soon after his brother and friends started calling him Short because he was shorter than everyone else in the class. Then he added the word "to" before his name, after watching the story of a gangster named Too Sweet. The first year he lived in Oakland was also the first time he heard rap music. New York rap songs played on his radio every day, and with a musical background already in place, he soon realized he could rap too. However, instead of talking about New York, he'll talk about Oakland. The hardcore rap lines appeared immediately. His first rap lines were about surviving on the streets, about hustlers, and of course, about pimping. 2. The comeback. That forced hip-hop to change the rules. In 1981, 15-year-old Too Short dropped out of high school for a year to pursue a rapping career. He bought some recording equipment, collaborated with fellow rapper Freddie B, and they both started making music at Too Short's house. After recording the first tape, they went to a park known for drug dealing and sold it to a drug dealer for $5, and it didn't stop there. They go outside every day to sell tape, either walking or taking the bus to every park in Oakland where drug dealers gather. They even recorded rap tapes they called special requests for some of the big drug dealers around town who wanted personalized rap songs about themselves and the areas they controlled. These tapes sell for $20 each. Juggling selling tapes. Too Short DJ'd and performed at house parties, so it didn't take long for his reputation to spread about who he was. He was the first rapper in Oakland with X-rated lyrics, and by 1984, all the town's biggest pimps and drug dealers were vouching for him. Also that year, Too Short recorded his brand catchphrase for the first time. By 1985, Too Short had finished high school and was working with 75 Girls, a record label run by producer Dean Hodges. He impressed Dean Hodges' brother at a show in Oakland, even though he didn't have a radio hit or even a real album yet. Too Short began recording full-time with 75 Girls, and from 1985 to 1987, he recorded the albums Don't Stop Rapping, Players, and Raw, Uncut, and X-Rated. However, Too Short didn't make much money during his years working with 75 Girls, but he learned the business of music. So in 1987, he left to start his own company, Dangerous Music. Finally, he met Ted Bohannon, a hustler in Oakland who was widely known on the streets and had a lot of money to invest in his Dangerous Music label. Ted Bohannon spared no expense when recording the album for Too Short. He funded Short's entire project, paying for studio time and photography. That investment made Too Short more famous than ever before and helped solidify his image as a pimp with the 1987 release of the album Born to Mac, which included the classic track Freaky Tales, selling over 60,000 copies independently. At the same time, Too Short formed the group Dangerous Crew, which later evolved into him Ant Banks Goldie and Father Don. These four would work together for many years, creating some of Too Short's biggest hits. As Too Short's success grew, major record labels began to take notice, and less than a year after the release of Freaky Tales, Jive Records approached him offering a 7-album contract. That contract put Too Short in the mainstream spotlight, making him a millionaire by the age of 21. During his time working with Jive, Too Short released 14 albums, 6 of which went platinum and 4 gold. He recorded with E40 and Tupac, and made music so quickly that he delivered complete albums to Jive before they even sent him a recording budget. By this point, Too Short was already a Bay Area superstar, the voice of Oakland and the first rapper to put the city on the musical map. But Too Short's success came with its downsides. Clashes with the police became commonplace for Too Short. But that night, a horrific accident occurred, wiping out all the career and fortune he had. 3. Horrific collision. In 1991, amidst the lingering smell of gunfire and crack in Oakland, Hort entered a moment that he himself admits will never die in memory. A collision. A screech of brakes pierced the night. A 22-year-old man named James Ellerby died at the scene. Another person was seriously injured. In just a few seconds, the halo that had just begun to emerge with an Oakland rapper was covered by the gray of responsibility and judgment. But the tragedy didn't stop there. Immediately, the press swarmed in like a pack of predators sensing the scent of scandal. They dissected every detail, drawing the entire city into a wave of outrage. The victim's death was already shocking enough, but the police report made things explode even further. Drugs were found in the car. Hort's breath exceeded the legal alcohol limit. It was all closed into a public sentence without going to court, without a trial. The media is concluding instead of justice. But what angered the public was his reaction. When asked about the drugs, he denied it, saying it was already in the car before. In the eyes of the majority, that's not an explanation, it's an evasion. A 25-year-old man caused a fatal accident, was found to be under the influence of drugs and alcohol, but stubbornly insisted he knew nothing. The sincerity the public expected never materialized. And public anger is a shadow even heavier than the court's verdict. The Ellerby family is suing civilly. What they need is not an apology in front of the press, but justice for their son. By 2001, when the court handed down a nearly $1 million verdict, that figure fell on Hort's life like a ton of bricks. But few understand that this is only the beginning of a 3-decade-long financial cycle, not the end. Because civil cases in the US don't stand still. They accrue interest, a form of sleeping money that never rests. You pay a year late and it grows by a year. If you pay back $10,000 next year, the interest could eat up $15,000 draw. That's not an invoice, it's a money pit. What the public doesn't know is despite Hort's fame, his income is nowhere near the huge numbers fans imagine. Artists live off shows, tours, and royalties, but those amounts don't pour into their accounts like lottery winnings. It comes in dribs and drabs quarterly according to the contract based on the split for the record label producer, federal taxes, and management. When it reached 2 hort, the remaining amount wasn't enough to extinguish the nearly $1 million debt that was growing. A platinum album doesn't mean $1 million in your pocket. Sometimes only a few fragments are left after the music industry takes its share. Worse, his tax records were audited, and a new debt was uncovered, hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal taxes. The IRS is always prioritized for collection over all other creditors, meaning any money you earn is blocked right from the start to pay taxes. If you owe both the court and the IRS, your finances are no longer under your control. The court appoints a trustee, someone who has the right to control all of your cash flow. It's not that he doesn't want to pay, but your money is no longer in your hands. That's why from 2009 onward, the trustee collected all music royalties, streaming fees, and broadcasting revenue. Everything the public thought of as the passive income of a legend actually flowed into the debt repayment fund. But artists' incomes are inherently unstable. A gentleman earned $40,000, but the following quarter, he only had $5,000 left. Low cash flow, high interest. The debt to the Ellerby family still stood there almost untouched. When he turned 51, the trustee still held control over his catalog. By the age of 55, the debt was still not paid off. And as he turns 59, 2 hort still can't say he's paid off the debt from that fateful night. The reality is simple, but bitter. He has about $544,650 in assets, mostly a $500,000 house in Georgia, which can't be sold immediately because it's mortgaged. But he has nearly $1,889,903 in debt, including $1 million owed to the Ellerby family. A man with $500,000 in assets, but nearly $2 million in debt, irregular income, locked up royalties, and tax debts piled upon court debts. How can he keep up with a settlement that swells every year? That's why the story spans 30 years. It's not because he's irresponsible. It's not because he wants to avoid it. And because the financial hole from a single misstep in 1991 was much deeper than the spotlight the audience had ever seen. And when you look into 2 hort's deep-set eyes, you understand debt isn't just on paper. It's in every breath of a lifetime paying the price for a single moment of error. However, that wasn't the final dark spot that ended everything. 4. The final piece of the family puzzle. On the morning of January 29, 2025, Oakland was cold and gray, as if the city itself knew of the bad news waiting just around the corner. In the morning news bulletin, the name Wayne Shaw, 2 hort's biological brother, appeared alongside the words "shot." There was no warning, no slow-motion replay, no chance to say another goodbye. An armed robbery at a cannabis facility, a gunshot fired, and a 61-year-old man collapsed on the sidewalk where he had walked his entire life. When the news reached 2 hort, he didn't shout, didn't swear, and didn't look for anyone to blame. He simply got into the car, silently closed the door, turned on Ohio Players, the music the brothers used to listen to when they were dirt poor, and let the camera capture a moment few would have expected to see: the eyes of a 59-year-old man reddening, truly moist. Real tears. I can't reply to any texts. I can't. That sentence is neither a statement nor an excuse. It was like a sigh from a man who had weathered too many storms. But this time, all his tough facades fell away. After so many years of being the pimp rap uncle, so many times standing on stage in front of tens of thousands of people, so many times showing off swagger and nonchalance, suddenly it all seemed meaningless. In that moment, he wasn't 2 hort, the legend, the icon, the West Coast survivor, but just Todd Shaw, the boy from South Central, who had just lost his brother in the most brutal way Oakland could devise. What made that scene haunting wasn't the tears, but the silence. 2 hort's entire career was built on words, dirty words, confident words, street storytelling words. But that morning, he couldn't say anything. All the shows he's performed, all the cash he's held, all the platinum albums he's had, none of it could help him in that moment when his heart was torn open. The man who once made America call his name with pride can now barely read a condolence message. And it was that silence that was the punch to the audience's heart. It exposes a stark truth: when families break down, when flesh and blood are lost, no hit song makes the pain any lighter. The bitter irony is that this tragedy arrived just as the past had not yet let him go. 3 decades of facing civil judgments, bankruptcy income fragmented by trustees, legal scandals, and the pressures of old age had already left him with an unspoken layer of weariness. But no matter how painful these are still, the wounds of career money and fame. Wayne's death was completely different. It struck directly at the part of his life that people thought he still had, his family. The opposition forms a double-edged sword. In 2011, when the internet spread rumors that Hort had died of a heart attack, he tweeted, "Stop calling my phone. I'm not dead." He laughed at the world because he thought he was falling apart. He considered it a joke and even used it to promote his new album. But 2025, he couldn't laugh anymore. This time, the dead person is a real brother. No one edits Wikipedia. It's not a social media joke. It's not a rumor. It's sad news. That moment was like life, reminding him, you used to escape pain with laughter, not now. For audiences who have followed him since the days of battery-powered cassettes, this is a bigger shock than any scandal, because they were used to the image of Hort being reckless, indifferent to drama, and seeing life as a playground for pimps and hustlers. They were used to seeing him standing next to Snoop Ice Cube and E40 laughing like an old king enjoying his final glory. But that tearful video made them understand one thing behind that immortal swagger. He was still just a younger brother who had lost the older brother he had relied on his entire life. Wayne Shaw is not famous, but he is the person who appears in every most important stage of Hort's life. From the time the brothers were crammed into their house in South Central, to when they moved to Oakland and had to learn to live among the black world, Wayne was always the one who held down the fort so Todd could venture out. When Todd started to become famous, Wayne was his quiet support system. When Todd was scrutinized for his dirty rap lyrics, Wayne was the first to say, "It's okay, that's your voice." When Todd faced legal or financial scandals, Wayne was the only one who called not to ask, "How much did it cost?" but to ask, "Are you okay?" And when such a pillar disappears, the 59-year-old man himself seems disoriented. Many fans describe the feeling of watching that video as being like seeing their father cry. It forced them to remember something that seemed obvious, but had been forgotten for too long, that the artists they thought were strong, wealthy, and carefree were actually just as lonely, vulnerable, and had lost loved ones as anyone else. What made Hort's pain even deeper wasn't just the loss, but the circumstances he was living in when the tragedy struck. A person nearing 60 years old, still burdened by the past, still involved in new lawsuits, and yet to find true rest now has to bear another sorrow. One can endure the pressures of money, fame, and legal matters, but losing family, especially someone who has been with you every step of the way, from poverty to wealth, from obscurity to legend, that is a wound that nothing can heal. That's why this section needs to exist, to show viewers that Hort's greatest pain in life wasn't bankruptcy scandals or lawsuits. It was the loss of his only close relative, who never saw him as Hort, but always as Todd. As the moment he said real tears wasn't just him admitting he was crying. It was the first time in his 40-year career that he admitted he was tired and pain and getting old. No more bass. There was only one man left, who looked at life and felt more alone than ever. 5. The silence between glory and loss. After the age of 50, Hort's life no longer ran on bass beats or stage lights. It runs on silence. This kind of silence forces a man to confront himself when there are no more cheering audiences, no more swaggering rap crew walking behind him. And before his brother was shot dead in early 2025, Hort's life had quieted down in an inexplicable way, as if everything within him had silently muted years earlier. Imagine an early morning in Los Angeles. In a room filled with gold and platinum records, a man in his late 50s sits in a swivel chair looking down at his hands, as if searching for something he lost long ago. Photos taken with Snoop Ice Cube and E40 lay tilted on the shelf, covered in a thin layer of dust. No more laughter of friends, no more hurried calls to discuss the tour, and no more evenings that stretched until sunrise. Silence crept into the house like an uninvited guest, yet stayed as long as if it were the true master of his life. That's not the silence of peace. It was the silence of someone who used to run too fast, too strong, to the point that when they stopped, they realized even the wind had abandoned them. Since 2018, when the sexual battery lawsuit erupted and concluded controversially, Hort has become more cautious and reserved. Every movement slows down. Contracts were canceled, media invitations dwindled, and what he earned was seized by the trustee to pay off debts that had accumulated over nearly 3 decades. Reputation was once the greatest asset, but now it's like an old coat, beautiful, but no longer warm enough. In the period from 2018 to 2024, as hip-hop entered the era of trap drill and melodic rap and the younger generation rose like a new wave, Hort seemed like an outsider watching the tide turn. No bitterness, no forcing my way in just a sigh. The market no longer has room for an old-school rapper who speaks directly, has simple beats, and a slow flow like him. Rap is not wrong. The times are not wrong. It's just that you've gone too far from what you're used to. And the feeling of being left behind didn't come like a slap in the face, but like a cold wind creeping into your collar. Fine at first, but if you stand there for too long, it chills you to the bone. Not many of his contemporaries are still around. Tupac is gone. Biggie is gone. Shock G is gone. Mac Dre is gone. Dangerous Crew has been disbanded for a long time. Those who once danced on stage with him are now only present through old posters or a few fleeting phone calls to check on his health. Some days Hort would open his contacts and see his list of phone numbers getting shorter with each passing year. The names that were once at the top of the list are now etched on memorial shirts printed under the words, "Rest in Peace." And that made him understand a truth that youth never accepts. The road to the top is always crowded, but the road back is always lonely. A rapper who once symbolized noise suddenly became accustomed to a quieter lifestyle. His performance schedule has decreased, his health no longer allows him to run the stage continuously, and most of his new projects are more often discussed in meeting rooms than in recording studios. There were days when he would just sit and listen to the 70s funk tracks he loved as a child, as if he were searching for his life's North Star. But even music couldn't erase the weariness of someone who had spent the rest of their life in law debt and courtrooms. When a man goes through many scandals and much pain, people often think he has become numb and immune to hurt. But it's precisely this silence that shows the opposite. Hort isn't afraid of the noise. He's only afraid that every time the noise ends, the house will return to the sound of his own breathing. At 59, that loneliness weighed more heavily than tax debt, more than a civil judgment, more than all the criticism life had thrown at him. And then his brother's death struck like the final blow. When you've lived in silence for too long, any noise can make you collapse. That loss not only took away a brother, but also the only part of Todd Shaw's life where he still felt he belonged. People saw the video of him crying and that the tragedy began there. But the truth is that video was just the final chapter in a long period of loneliness that he had silently carried on his shoulders for many years. Many people thought Hort disappeared to enjoy his old age. But the truth is, he lived in a period of silence that no hit song, no platinum album, no tour could fill. Fame made him stand out from the crowd, but it didn't keep him there when the crowd dispersed. And when my brother left, that silence turned into an empty room. In that room, Hort, the rap legend, was not present. Only Todd Shaw, a man trying to understand why the most familiar things are leaving him too quickly. 6. The vortex of a star. At 59, one would think Hort had earned the right to choose a quiet afternoon for himself, sitting in the studio, replaying old beats, occasionally picking up his young daughter, and simply enjoying the fame he'd built over 4 decades of work in rap. But life isn't that easy. While many of his fellow rappers from the same generation have retired from the stage-written memoirs or built shoe brands, Hort found himself in another courtroom. Once again, his name appeared in a lawsuit related to money, something he had been running from facing and trying to pay off for 30 years. And this time, the number is $3 million. The case began in 2024, when West Side Merch filed a lawsuit against Mount Westmore, a supergroup consisting of Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, E40, and Hort, alleging they failed to fulfill their commercial commitments. West Side says they advanced over $1 million to produce merch, prepare for the tour, and promote their image. But the tour didn't go as agreed. And according to the plaintiffs, they were left with millions of dollars worth of unsold airline tickets. so all the group members were named even though each person had a different level of involvement. Hort immediately denied responsibility, stating that he was not a party to the contract and that any dispute would be at the management level. But the law doesn't care about feelings. Just by having your name appear on legal documents, you're already in the game. What could be more bitter than this? A rapper nearly 60 years old, who should be preparing for his legacy era, is instead having his lawyer called out in court. Each hearing, each second of media coverage of the case serves as a cold reminder, you're still not out of the legal loop even though you're nearly 60. For Hort, this wasn't just a financial inconvenience. It was like the echo of a predetermined life. Whenever he stepped onto the stage, success would applaud. But when the lights went out, legal issues and debts would pull him down into the defendant's seat. Strangely, from the outside, the years 2024-2025 are seen as a period of Hort's musical revival. The new album Sir Hort Vol. 1 was received quite positively. He contributed as an actor and served as an executive producer in the film Freaky Tales, as a tribute to the very city of Oakland that shaped him. He even appeared at Coachella during DJ Pee Wee's set, causing the entire audience to chant his name as if his golden age had never passed. But that was the most painful paradox. The light was still there, but it wasn't shining directly on where he was actually standing. The career highlights in one's late 50s are like the final fireworks of a festival that ended long ago. In the center, he was seen as brilliant. But stepping off the stage, he returned to the role of a man struggling with bills, with lawyers, with money that wasn't his. It's easy to see the fatigue in the way he appears. When asked about the lawsuit, he was almost evasive. No blame, no over-defensiveness. Just the silence of a man too accustomed to being caught up in stories he no longer has the strength to explain himself. This is a problem faced by many older artists. Their careers are long, but their energy to protect themselves from the market is declining. A generation that once lived on cassettes, tour buses, and club nights now faces commercial law million-dollar contracts and an entire music ecosystem they no longer control. At a deeper level, the Mount Westmore lawsuit evokes a story that is very Hort. Over the years, his catalog has sustained. The past royalties are being held by the trustee for old debts, old taxes, and the 1991 accident. And now, at nearly 60 years old, he finds himself in a new whirlwind. The very musical achievements that were supposed to nourish his old age are being used as evidence against him in court. Catalog money pays off old debts. That saying is painfully true. But for him, perhaps something was even more bitter. Music nourishes memory, but memory also nourishes pain. And that's the underlying current of the entire story. Every time Hort steps on stage, the audience sees a solid, confident OG who stays true to his style and doesn't follow trends. But as he turned 59, we began to realize that the veneer of that image was much thinner than the stage lights. In ordinary moments, the trial, bad news about his brother, lost funds, broken contracts. One sees something the past never gave him weariness. It's not physical fatigue, but mental fatigue. The kind of tiredness that comes from thinking you've escaped so many times, only to be pulled back to the same place. This makes this section integral to his entire journey, from the child selling tapes in the park, to the platinum-selling rapper, to the man repeatedly pulled back by the past. The Mount Westmore lawsuit wasn't the biggest disaster of his life, but it was a turning point. Like a final reminder that Hort's journey had never been truly peaceful. Ultimately, this story isn't just about a rapper. It's a lesson about the price of fame, of youth passing too quickly, of mistakes that were thought to be buried, but turned out to still be alive. Hort's life poses a question for all of us, between the bright lights and a scarred old age. What is truly worthwhile?
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.